The last time I tried making croissants, this is what they looked like.
Bruh.
So after doing some research, I found out how to make
Pâtisserie.
worthy croissants. No fancy equipment or ingredients. To make a solid croissant, all you need is some ordinary plain flour, sugar, instant yeast, salt, butter, whole milk, and water. Measure out 600 grams of flour. Most people tell you to use a strong flour that's at least 11% protein. I'm too broke to use fancy flour for a potential failure, but my bag of Coles flour that costed $2.70 worked just fine. Then chuck in 60 grams of sugar, 7 grams of yeast, 10 grams of salt, 120 grams of whole milk, and 210 grams of water. The reason to use milk with lactose is because lactose is a form of sugar that the yeast can't digest, meaning it survives until the croissants are baked. And you know what happens when sugar is heated?
Caramelization.
Beautiful golden brown exterior. Put on some gloves to protect your fingers from that slimy mixture and combine until you have a lumpy dough. Transfer your work to a surface and knead slightly until the dough gets a little smoother. Now for some
Butter.
Measure out 50 grams of it, make a little nest in your dough and wrap the butter up. Now smush it down, grease up those elbows because you're going to be kneading until you're able to stretch the dough thin enough for light to pass through. Mine took like 40 minutes, but that's because I suck at kneading. Yours might take less time though. Or you could just use a stand mixer. It should be stretchy enough to pull without ripping.
Bruh.
Good enough. Now shape your dough baby into a ball by pulling it towards you and turning it round and round to create tension in its surface. Place your dough back into its bowl, cover with cling wrap and place in the fridge overnight. I left mine in the fridge for about 17.5 hours. During this time, the yeast, other bacteria and starches will become best friends and create a sweet and whimsical atmosphere. So the longer they're left alone, the sweeter the dough will become. Or at least I think that's what happens. I don't know, apparently slower fermentation means sweeter, more flavorful dough. Anyway, when I went to check on the dough the next morning, I expected it to double in size, but that doesn't look like it's doubled to me. So I left it on my countertop for 2 more hours and that looks slightly better. Let's make the butter block. Here's how to do it efficiently to minimize mess and achieve a perfectly square slab. Start by cutting a piece of baking paper about the length of a 2-liter water bottle and folding up 2 adjacent sides. From the corner of where the sides meet, measure 18 centimeters across one side and fold the unfolded side. Now measure 18 centimeters along the other side and fold the final unfolded side so that you're left with an 18 by 18 centimeter square. Measure out 330 grams of butter by cutting out thin-ish blocks and playing Tetris on your baking paper. Grab a rolling pin and beat the butter until it's soft like plasticine. Then smush and roll over it, squeezing the butter into the sides and corners of the baking paper. The butter should be flexible and pliable, but not melted. Time to combine our dough and butter block. Deflate the dough.
Bruh.
Mine did not deflate because it had not inflated enough. That's okay. Roll out your dough into a rectangle that's twice the width of your butter block and the same length. Place your butter block in the middle of the dough, cut the edges off and connect them together. Roll it out until it's about the length of your oven. Bring one side up 2/3 of the way, cut the rounded edge of the other side, cut that in half, and match it up with the other edge like a jigsaw puzzle so you get 2 nice straight edges without wastage. Fold the other side until it reaches this line, then fold everything in half. You've now created 4 layers. Cut along all the folded edges with a small knife to release tension, then roll the dough out again until it's about as long as your oven, again. Fold into threes, cut along the folded edges, and roll into the same length until you've now created 12 layers. Every time you roll, make sure the folded and cut edges are the ones that are getting longer. If you feel like the dough is resisting you, wrap it up in a plastic bag or plastic wrap, or wet tea towel if you're eco-friendly, and place it in the fridge to relax for 20 minutes. The best time to do this is just after you've folded and rolled your dough a tiny bit so it looks like the size of a pork belly. This way, your dough is flat enough to chill more or less evenly, yet small enough to fit in your fridge conveniently. After taking your dough out of the fridge, leave it out at room temperature for between 5 and 10 minutes so that it's not so cold the butter will shatter, but not warm enough for it to melt. The final fold will be a repetition of the last one. Fold into threes and cut along the edge. Now you'll have 36 buttered dough layers. To shape the croissants, roll your dough into a 50 by, it doesn't matter how wide, rectangle. Wash your high school ruler and mark every 10 centimeters along the bottom with a knife. Measure 5 centimeters from the top and continue to mark the dough every 10 centimeters along the top side. Play connect the dots with your knife and you'll have 9 triangles for making croissants, and the other 2 not so pretty bits can be used for making something else. Now, just watch what this guy is doing. Let them rise in a warm environment. I used my oven without turning it on and placed a little bowl of hot water at the bottom and my croissants on the top rack, ensuring the croissants and bowl of water were as far away from each other as possible. I also chucked a clock in the oven to monitor the temperature, then left it alone for 2.5 hours. Don't bother too much about how long they've been rising. Check their volume and whether or not they pass the wobble test. I also replaced the hot water in the bowl halfway through. Checking the temperature is important for this step. Do not let it get above 31 degrees because this is the temperature at which butter melts, and you don't want all of your flaky layers to melt away. Seriously, if you don't have a thermometer, chuck a clock in there. It helps. Once your little croissants are all big and grown up, to make them nice and shiny, beat 1 egg with a generous pinch of salt. The salt will denature the egg proteins and make them nice and runny just like this. You can also add a splash of lactose milk to make it even more runny. Remember, we want that sugar. Preheat your oven to 170 degrees, and while that's heating up, coat your croissants with a generous layer of egg stuff. Now watch your croissants glow up. Keep them in the oven for a minimum of 17 minutes, but you can leave them in for longer to brown up until your desired brownness. I left mine in for 17 minutes, but because my oven heats unevenly, after this I flipped my tray around and baked them for another 6. Ready? I made some funky cruffins with the ugly edges. So this is how to make croissants. Thanks for watching.